Hi, good morning, everybody. Thank you for calling in. My name's Sam. I'm one of the consular officers here at the U.S. Embassy.
All right, my name is Malia. I work in public affairs with Education USA, and I'm also temporarily working in the consular section.
So we're very excited about having everybody call in today. We've been planning this for quite some time. We'll make sure that we can get to everybody's questions here. We'd like to go through a brief presentation on the student visa process. That way we can leave more time for everybody's questions. So when you do have a question, make sure you submit it, and we have our whole team here who's getting the questions over to us so that we can get you the answers that you need. So student visas, we know that everybody's anxious. You've been accepted to schools, or maybe you are just thinking now about starting to apply to schools in the U.S. You may have some concerns, you may be excited, but we'll go through, we'll talk about everything, and we can get you what you need. The first point is, why do you want to study in the U.S.? It's obviously a great education. We have thousands and thousands of universities all throughout America. If you want to be in a big city like New York, or if you want to be in a small area in Idaho or any other, or Montana, we have all different types of universities that can meet your needs. It gives you the opportunity to meet new people, meet people from different walks of life, maybe different from your own upbringing, and that's a great asset. And it allows you to experience a new culture and make you a well-rounded citizen going into your professional career after you finish university. One thing I'd like to address is the topic that everyone's seeing on the news today. I know this has been on the news internationally. And what we'd like to say is that America is not a perfect country. We're confronting long-standing issues right now, and this is you're seeing this live on TV throughout this week and the previous week. When our founding fathers wrote the U.S. Constitution almost 250 years ago, they wrote in there that we seek to form a more perfect union. And I think that's really important, because we are not, as Americans, and we have never been perfect. But as a country, we're founded on striving to be better. And I think there's no more important time than now to hold truth to these words. I'd like to talk particularly about students, and that's everybody who called in here today. International students from Nigeria, which is obviously the giant of Africa, as well as students from around the world, want to come to the U.S. because you'd like to learn from American professors and you'd like to study at American universities. But let me say that diversity is and always will be our greatest asset in America. We as U.S. citizens still have learning to do. So young leaders such as yourselves, you're so valuable when you come to America, not just to learn, but also to teach us. Teach us about your experiences and your beliefs. We welcome you all to study in the U.S., and we hope that you consider the power of your experience as a student studying in the United States. But now I'd like to move on to a discussion on the student visa process. Apologize for that power outage right now. So there's 3 different categories of student visas. There's the F visa, the J visa, and the M visa. I'll talk first about the F visa, and Malia will then talk about more parts of the process. So F visas can be for high school students, for English language training, an associate's degree, a bachelor's degree, a master's, and even a PhD program. Now I'll let Malia talk about the process.
All right. One of the first things that I'm noting when I'm looking at some of these questions that have already come in is when we're starting the interview process. As you are sure, I'm sure everyone is aware, the embassy here in Abuja and the consulate in Lagos are closed for routine services, which include visas. That said, the department and the mission here in Nigeria recognize that student visas are still one of our highest priorities. And when we are able to resume visa services, we will work to prioritize those appointments as far as is humanly possible so that we can give the best services to the students who are seeking to go to classes in the United States. In the meantime, we would urge all of our students to review their individual universities' websites, because several universities have already made decisions about their fall semester. Some are choosing to go to all online classes. Some are a mixture of online and in-person classes. Some classes have been totally canceled until January of 2021. So please keep up with your local university and what your university is saying, and look at your options for deferment, look at your options for taking online classes. I know it's a very anxious time for people, for parents and for students who want to get themselves organized and want to get the process started. And unfortunately, right now, we don't have a timeline for when we will be able to open for services. If you are, a special note for physicians, because there's been some information out about physicians. If you are a physician and you need to go to the United States to help fight COVID, to work on your J visa, to do your internship, we do understand that that is a priority appointment and that is an emergency appointment, and we're trying to put a system in place in order for that to happen safely, with the proper social distancing and everything that is required for that to happen. And we hope that by the time the government of Nigeria reopens for international flights, we will have that in order so that people who are J visa holding physicians will be able to attend emergency appointments and will be able to travel on the commercial flights that the government of Nigeria has opened up the airports for. So in any case, now that we have that sort of major question answered, let me say that J visas require the valid I-20. So this is not someone who is a physician in Nigeria volunteering to go help for COVID. They all need to have the process in place that has already started. J visas are also for any sort of exchange student besides physicians. So high school exchanges, international research scholars, lots of different other types of visas. And your institution will send you the paperwork, the I-20 that you need. So you would need to have that to come in and do your interview. For the visa, you need it's the 2019, and again, it's something that your university sends to you, so you will have it in time for your visa appointment. The steps to apply: everyone who's been doing Education USA understands the steps to apply. It's something that you have heard over and over again from our advisors, because I know that is a very big part of their work, and how you are accepted to college and how you go through the interview process. So this session is obviously focused on that interview process. Once you do apply and you have an appointment date, whether that comes through our regular system or the emergency system, you need to make sure that all of your paperwork is in order, all of your documents in order, your passports and everything are in order, and come in for your interview. You need to make sure that this includes your SEVIS fee, so please make sure that your SEVIS fee is already paid. You need your passport, either your I-20, your DS your DS 2019, and you also need your DS 160, which is your visa interview paperwork. These are what is required to bring. Anything else that is going to demonstrate how you're paying for your studies, your grades, your WIAC scores, any of those things also you should consider bringing. And that is about it for me. One of the things that we always tell people is we understand that you're nervous. We understand that you are concerned about your interview going well. The reality for consular officers is they have very little time for each individual interview. They'd like to spend 15, 20 minutes with you. They don't have that time to do that. So we ask when you come in, if you can be concise, be very clear, and explain why you're going to the United States, why you've chosen your course of study, who's going to pay for your course of study. And we want a story that makes sense and is clear. It doesn't mean you have to rehearse and rehearse until you sound like a robot, but we do need the story to make sense, and we need the story you need to be able to explain your plan.
Yeah, so I've done about 2,500 student visa interviews so far here in Nigeria, and I've seen and heard just about every story that could take place. I think Malia makes some really valid points that it's normal for you to be nervous because you're coming in, you're speaking to someone you've never met, maybe me or one of my colleagues, and you want to get the visa. So we understand there's going to be some nerves there. But the really important thing is that you explain your story in a way that makes sense to us, because I've never met you before. I don't know if you're telling the truth. I don't know if your story is real. So your job is to convince me in about 2 or 3 minutes is all we have per interview. Sometimes a little bit longer if it's more complex. But your job is to convince me as the consular officer that you're a genuine student and that you actually plan on studying at the university that you've selected. And lastly, that you have the means to pay for this. So just showing me a bank statement from someone, your cousin, your uncle, just showing me a bank statement that has enough money in there likely won't be enough. I'll probably ask you some follow-up questions on it. I need to know how you're related to this person. How can you prove to me that they're actually going to pay that money? Because university in America is quite expensive. It's very, very expensive. And if you can prove to me that this is your father owns a business in Kano, or your brother is a successful entrepreneur in Lagos, and he plans to pay for your university degree, and you also have a scholarship that covers 25% of your tuition, well, we're off to a pretty good start there, and I'd say your chances of getting that visa will be quite high. So be ready to talk about your plans, be organized, and lastly, try not to be too scripted. It's perfectly natural for you to practice in front of your family, in front of your friends, but if you show up and it sounds kind of like a robot, and you can't divert from, if I ask you a question, because my job is to try to get to the truth really quickly, so I might purposely ask you a question that I know will throw off your whole speech, because I want to see if you're really speaking truthfully to me, or if you're just preparing a script like you're a movie star and you've practiced your movie script. So it's natural to prepare. We expect you to prepare, but be ready to answer questions that are not part of that preparation.
The other thing we wanted to talk about very, very briefly is touts. And we understand that sometimes people find the visa process complicated to apply, but we do want to give you a warning about visa touts. Their business is to collect your money. Their business is not necessarily to help you. So everything that you put on that application and everything that you present in a visa interview and everything that you say in an interview is supposed to be true and correct. And when you put down your fingerprints, you are swearing an oath that all of that information is true and correct. And when you are caught, or if you are caught not being truthful, that is, it could have very serious permanent consequences, not only the denial of your visa for a student, but the denial of visas in the future for other things. So we encourage people to be honest, and we encourage people to not necessarily avail themselves of the additional services that touts often offer, like here's a bank statement that doesn't belong to you. Here's a mortgage document saying you own a house. Here's a variety of other things. We want our applicants to be truthful with us, and we want them to be careful. And if you need someone to help you fill out the application, that's fine. But please review the information on the application before it is submitted, because you are legally responsible for what is on that application.
Yeah, one thing we've unfortunately seen a number of times here is that when someone submits a bank statement that's false, that has a false balance in it, we verify most bank statements with the actual bank, and we can figure out how much money is actually in the account at that time. And when you submit a false bank statement to us, that typically leads to a permanent ineligibility, a permanent ban on getting a visa to the U.S. And it's really unfortunate because sometimes we see people come in their 30s, 30-something years old with a wife and kids, and they made a silly mistake 8 years ago when they were applying for a student visa, and they lied about their finances, or they lied about what institution, what university they wanted to go to. And that's a ban on not just a student visa, but that's a ban on all visas, because it's a material misrepresentation of facts to a visa officer. So it's really important that you have proper finances and you have proper documents and that you're truthful about it, because I don't want to see you have to go through that and have to come in 10 years later with your spouse and with your kids and be turned away when you're otherwise a good person, a law-abiding citizen. So please, take to heart what Malia is saying about the touts and about truthful documentation. So we'll talk a little bit now about what happens. You have your successful interview, and the visa officer tells you, congratulations, we're approving your visa. At that point, you will pay the reciprocity fee at the embassy cashier. We'll take your passport from you, and usually a couple days later, we will mail it back to you by DHL. We say no more than 30 days. Typically, it's much faster than that. If your visa is denied, there's two types of refusals that I'll talk about. So there's the 221G refusal, which means we don't have enough information from you, and we have a certain question that we need more information about. So, for instance, say that you come in with only partial bank statements, and your bank statements say they ended 3 months ago. We might refuse you then. It's a refusal, but it can be overcome. It means we'll give you a piece of paper that says you have 30 days to send us a more recent bank statement. And once you do that, we'll review the whole package. And at that point, we will issue the visa if we feel confident about it. Or if we don't feel confident about it, we would then give it what's called a 214B refusal. And that refusal means that you did not demonstrate sufficient qualifications or sufficient finances for that visa. Those cannot be appealed. They can't be overturned. However, you can reapply. So just because you have that 214B refusal, it's disheartening, it's sad, it's unfortunate, but figure out what you could do better for the next time, and you're welcome to reapply after that.
Just a note on that, however, though, if nothing has changed in your situation between your first interview and your second interview, you are likely to get the same answer. And although we cannot say you are not allowed to reapply, we do understand that application is expensive and time-consuming. And if nothing has changed in your situation from a month ago or 6 weeks ago, then you are highly likely to come in and get the same answer, and then you are spending time and money, and we don't encourage that. All right.
So just a few more points, and we will go straight to questions. Want to take it away?
So, yep. All right. There are some terms and conditions on student visas. One of the biggest ones, and one of the most things that we get questions about, is can I work on a student visa? The primary purpose of you going to the United States is to study. And while work is permitted, there are statutory limitations on work. So students should not plan on their working being the way that they pay for their school. Excuse me. By the way, we're social distance. That's why we're not wearing masks.
6 feet apart.
6 feet apart. That's why we're not wearing masks. They're 2 meters apart. Students are often asked, as I said, say, oh, I'll work. And that's fine, and they are allowed to work, but they are only allowed to work a maximum of 20 hours a week. Many times students find jobs in the cafeteria, or they find jobs online or jobs in the bookstore or in the library or other things, and that's absolutely fine. We have no issue with that, but students should not be planning on working more than that, because that is not permitted under the law, and that is very strictly enforced. And you do need to get permission from your school to do that, to work. So, did you want to talk about student B2?
Yeah. So, lastly, there's one other category of student visa that I just want to briefly touch on because it's actually pretty rare. Mm-hmm. But the B1, B2 regular visitor visa can sometimes be used for student purposes, but under very, very rare cases. So for medical clerkships, for non-degree type programs, for academic competitions like a Model UN type thing, and for very short course of study. So for instance, if it's a 4-week language program, you might be applying for a B1, B2 tourist visa. But work with your institution, with your university. They have student advisors for international students who will tell you what type of visa to apply for. Most categories are typically the F visa, then there's the J visa, and there's the the M. So typically it's F, J, or M. And I think at this point we can go to questions.
Yep, at this point we can go to
All
questions.
right, let's take the first question. So let's see, the first one. When will the embassy start accepting visa applications for students that are scheduled to resume for fall 2020?
Okay. Yep, again, that is, oh, thank you. Water, that's what I needed. Again, we are not sure when we are going to be able to do that. This is a high priority. This is always a high priority, and from past summer seasons, students are, go to the head of the queue. We have special times for students. It continues to be a high priority, but until we can coordinate with the government of Nigeria, the health people, and Washington, D.C. to make sure that we can safely do visa interviews, we are not going to be able to open. So we, again, encourage all students to monitor their individual university websites and see what their options are if we are not able to open in a fashion that is, timely and is going to get you to class. And I also know, as the mother of a college student, many universities are shifting their schedule. My son just informed me last night that his college is actually going to open 2 weeks early. And then they're not going to have a fall break, and then they're going to be done at Thanksgiving time. So that obviously creates a whole nother plan that we have to do. So please look at your university websites, see what your options are, see what your choices are, and how they can work with you. Contact your International Student Advising Office. Find out, can you take classes online? What can you do?
Yeah. We'll take the next question. This one's from Josh. It says, good morning. Please, how much does it cost to get a student visa to the U.S., and what are the chances of being granted a visa? So the visa application fee is $160 US. In addition to that, for students, there's what's called the SEVIS fee, and that is $320, I believe. It changes from year to year. I believe it's about $320, but that's on the SEVIS website, which those instructions are on our website when you go to apply for our visa. And then if you're granted the visa, there's then a $110 reciprocity fee that needs to be paid before we can issue that visa. And as part of that, the second part of that question was, what are the chances? It's difficult to say. It depends on each individual applicant. But if you follow the guidance that we gave in this Facebook Live, and this will be recorded and up on our website, so feel free to watch it again. Watch it the night before your interview if you want. And we want your story to make sense. We want your finances to make sense, and we want to believe that you are a credible student.
All right. Kiki has asked a question about students resuming in the fall, which I think we've already covered, and when we're going to be able to accept applications. Patience has said, my school is asking me to start online for the fall. How does that affect the visa applications? And when do we have to go for in-person interviews for the spring? Again, we don't know when we're going to be open for interviews. It's wonderful if your school has already told you we're going to do online schooling in the fall, because you then don't have to worry about time now. You could wait until October or November or whatever when we're open again, or hopefully when we're open again, because you don't have the pressure of, I have to arrive in August, I have to start straight away. So if your university has already told you that that's an option, that's wonderful. You now have some breathing room.
Yeah. So the next one is the reciprocity fee refundable. No, unfortunately, none of the visa fees are refundable. But if you were denied the visa, you do not pay the reciprocity fee. So that $110 reciprocity fee is only paid if you are granted the visa.
Okay. How long are student visas issued for or valid? If they're issued for your course of study, or do you have to renew every 2 years? In Nigeria, student visas are issued for 2 years. That is not a decision of the embassy in itself. That is actually a matter of international law and reciprocity. So American students who are here studying are issued 2-year visas to study here in Nigerian institutions, and Nigerian students are issued for 2 years to go study. So you will need to, if you're doing a 4-year course of study, typical undergraduate course of study, you would need to renew at the end of 2 years. And then you would also need to renew if you were going to do your OPT, your optional practical training. That's an excellent question, Diana.
Yeah. Let's see. So, Saliu, what are the requirements to apply for student visas? So the requirements, we talked about it in this presentation, but you need to fill out your DS-160. You need to get your SEVIS, your I-20 from your university, and then show up with your confirmation. You show up with your I-20. You show up with your bank statements and any other supporting documentation that you think is relevant. So you can bring your YX scores, your transcripts, anything that you think we might want to see as the visa officer. It never hurts to bring it.
El Said has said, how early can I start applying for the student visa? How do I pay the SEVIS fee? Do you advise that we go ahead and pay the SEVIS fee now? You are able to do all of that. You will not be able to schedule an appointment. I believe November is the earliest time we have appointments available right now, because we did not want to tell people they could schedule for June and then say, oh, we're not open for June, please schedule for July, and then say, oh, we're not open for July, and then people keep moving their time, because that's very inconvenient for everyone. So right now our calendar doesn't allow you to doesn't allow you to book an appointment before November. If we are open before then, we'll be able to contact those people and say, okay, we're now open in August, we're now open in September, you can move your appointment from November to earlier. So you can go ahead and start the process, and you can book the earliest possible appointment. However, the earliest possible appointment is November, which I know is causing a lot of angst and a lot of worry for people who are saying, but my school starts in August, my school starts in September. So you can start the process, but...
Yeah. Now, I'll take a related question here from Ademilua, who is asking whether an F1 student visa can be expedited if it's 60 days to the start of the program. Typically, yes, that is true. When you go to register for your appointment, there's an option for requesting an expedited appointment, and we review those expedited requests on a daily basis. Of course, right now we're not able to expedite any appointments because we're closed for visa services, but we do review those, and if there is a case that's related to, if you are in one of these categories that could potentially qualify for an expedited appointment, we will then reach back out to you and say yes, are you available this week, next week, whenever it is. But right now we don't have any expedited appointments.
All right, we have several questions asking about when are we opening for visas, and right now the answer is we just don't have any appointments available, and we're not sure when we're going to be open. It is a conversation that we are having daily with Lagos and with Washington, D.C., and various concerned people, because it is something that's very important to the department.
Yeah. And I'll take Valentine. What are the chances of getting an F1 visa when your sponsor is an American citizen? It actually makes no difference to us who your sponsor is. So whether your sponsor is an American, whether you don't have a sponsor at all, we are interested in, are you a genuine student, and can you pay for the program, and does your story make sense? So I wouldn't worry too much about having an American sponsor. It really makes no difference to me as the visa officer.
And then we had a question up a little higher on quarantining. So quarantine in the United States, or what you would have to do in the United States, is very much based on your state and what your individual university is saying is required. So you will need to check with your university, and you will also need to build that into your time. So if you have to quarantine for 2 weeks, if you have to quarantine for a week, however that is, you will need to build that into your plan when we start doing the interviews. Most people have said that their universities are being fairly flexible about things, so you should Work with your university, again, your international student advisor. If you got an assistantship, if you got some sort of scholarship, work with them and see what can happen for this fall semester.
Yeah. Shama, this is a very good question. I like this one. I got admitted for a 2-year program. Does my financial statement have to show proof of funds for the cost of attendance for just the first year or the entire 2-year program? So the question is, when we ask to see your bank statements, does it need to show enough money for the whole program or just the first year? Well, we only need to see funds for the first year, but we're probably going to ask you about your likelihood of continued funds. So if you show up with a bank statement that shows the exact dollar amount of that first year, that, as a visa officer, I'm going to wonder, that's odd. Why does the bank statement show that exact dollar amount? Sometimes there's a very good reason for it. Sometimes it's, your father has been saving the money and he placed it into your bank account for the purpose of the program. So we will ask that, but you only have to show us sufficient funding for the first year of the program.
All right, Moralaki has said the reciprocity fee that's paid in person, is it paid in Naira or dollars, and is it paid in cash or by card? It's paid here at the embassy, at the consular section, and it's paid in cash. And we can take dollars.
Mm-hmm.
Nairas or dollars,
yep.
But it must be paid in cash, no card.
Yes, and now I will take the next question regarding the DS-160 form. There's a section of the form that asks about who's paying for the trip. Does this question refer to the entire funding of the program or just the flight ticket? There's really no good answer to that question. You could put either one. If your response on that leads to more questions, it's very easy. As a visa officer, I would just ask you, is this person on your DS-160, are they paying the full program, or are they just paying your flight? And I would expect that you would have a good answer for me. So I wouldn't worry too much about that question on the DS-160 because we'll talk about it during the interview.
All right, Tricia has asked if they paid for the visa fee and they didn't make it, or they aren't able to come. When you pay for your visa interview fee, that receipt is valid for 1 year. So you are able to be interviewed anytime within the 1 year, and you do not have to repay or worry about that. It doesn't expire unless more than a year has passed.
All right.
Okay.
Peter, since the student visa has a 2-year validity, does that mean a PhD student, for instance, has to travel back to Nigeria for renewal? Not necessarily. So the the visa validity is 2 years. As long as you remain within your active SEVIS status and the university still considers you a full-time student within status, you are living lawfully, legally in the U.S. However, if you do travel back to Nigeria for any reason, you come back to visit family, you come back for a wedding, and anything like that, you would need to apply for a new visa.
Can a visa be issued to someone whose passport is less than 1 year to expiry? Yes, we can issue it. However, generally speaking, we like to have the passport be longer than the duration of the visa, because then you have to worry about, can I get my passport renewed? I have to now travel with the new passport that's valid, the old expired passport that has the valid visa in it. It does cause oftentimes a lot of issues for people who are traveling.
Yeah.
So we generally although technically yes, we can. We do like to see that the passport will be valid for at least the duration of the travel.
Yeah. Typically what we would do in that case is we would give you the 221G refusal letter, which means we need additional documents or information, and we would tell you that your visa is otherwise approvable, but we do need a new passport that shows a longer validity. And once you come back with that passport or mail us back that passport, we would then issue you the visa. Kahinde, is it compulsory for a student to provide a bank statement again after being offered a full scholarship? Well, so it depends on if the full scholarship shows just tuition, if it's a tuition scholarship, or if it also includes living expenses. If it's a full scholarship that shows tuition and living expenses, and it covers the entire cost that's shown on your I-20, it's not compulsory to bring a bank statement, but we would highly recommend it. at the very least to show that in case of an emergency, so for instance, you get sick in the U.S. and you have to go to the hospital, that scholarship wouldn't cover that hospital fee. So we will typically, as a visa officer, ask you, what about for emergencies? What if you need to fly back to Nigeria because you're, for a family emergency? Do you have several thousand US dollars available? But of course, if it's a full scholarship, we're not expecting to see an incredibly large amount on that bank statement. It can be a pretty small amount.
All right. Also, from Kendi, if a student's been denied this week, can they apply again next week, or is there a minimum number of days? Under the law, people are allowed to apply every single day if they want. However, as we had said before in the presentation, if nothing has changed between your last interview and your current interview, then the answer is very, very likely to be the same, and you have spent time and money, and we are very aware that it is expensive and time consuming to apply for a visa, and so we do not encourage that.
Right. So Zion, does age affect my chances of schooling in the U.S.? Not necessarily. We're not so concerned about age, but if one question we might ask, if you are 40 years old and you have you've been a businessman in Nigeria and you already have a bachelor's degree from Nigeria, and you're applying to go to school in the U.S. for an associate's degree or another bachelor degree, does that make sense? Why would you want to get a degree of the same level degree if you already have one? So it's not so much age that we look at, but we look at life experience and what you currently do and what degrees you currently have. Now, take that same situation, you're 40 years old, you're a businessman, you have a bachelor's degree from Nigeria, and now you're applying for a master's of business administration. Now that makes a lot of sense to me as a visa officer. I would be very inclined to grant that visa if everything else looks good.
RUO has said they'd like to know if the start date, if they get an I-20 with the August 2020 start date, is it still valid for an appointment for a visa interview, or do they need to apply for an I-20? I don't think we have discussed this, but we do understand globally what is going on. And I don't know what the capacity of schools will be to reissue thousands and thousands of I-20s. So I don't think that will necessarily be an issue for us, accepting that one, because, you can't control COVID, obviously, and we don't know if schools are going to be able to reissue everything.
That's something that we'll need to look into. That's a very good question, because we also would need to discuss with Department of Homeland Security. We might be able to issue the visa, but if the immigration officers at the airport wouldn't let you in, then there's no use in us issuing that visa. So thank you for that question.
Yes,
that's great. We will look into that.
But that's definitely above our pay grade here, and that's something that there'd have to be higher level discussions in Washington between the agencies.
Let's see. So during the interview process, how does a student prove home ties? It's a good question. There's no one answer to that. If you believe you have home ties, prove it to us. Explain what will compel you to come back to Nigeria. Is it your family? Is it your desire to open a business? Do you want to become a politician here in Nigeria? It all depends on how you prove it to us. And if I ask 10 different people to prove home ties, there's 10 different answers. So be confident in what you say, and if you believe that you have home ties, you should be able to explain it to us.
Okay. Achumba, does it make a difference if I book an appointment now? Will it make my interview faster than those of others who haven't booked an appointment when the embassy reopens? I can't necessarily say that it will be faster. I am a planning person, and I like to make sure that things happen, quickly as possible and as they're scheduled. When we do have appointments available eventually, we will reach out to the people who have made appointments and say you can move your appointments forward. Again, a lot of times we prioritize our lists. Are they doctors? Are they, a variety of different things? And we're getting continual guidance from Washington, which seems to change every single day, on what the priorities are and what we should be looking at and what we should be planning for. If it was me personally, I probably would go online and schedule the appointment, because then we have your email address, then we have your contact information, then we are able to get a hold of you to say, okay, now we're open. Do you want to move your appointment forward? If you haven't scheduled an appointment with us, we don't have your contact information.
Yeah. So, Uju, what happens if I change my major after getting my I-20? That's no problem for us. If you change it before beginning your classes, you may want to contact your university to get a new I-20 if it's before your visa appointment. But once you arrive in the U.S. and start university, if you change your major, that's totally normal, and the school will automatically update your status, and we can view that information. So you do want your I-20 to accurately reflect your course of study. So we'd recommend you try to get that new I-20 before the visa interview. But given the COVID situation, if your school's not working full time right now, if they're unable to get it, that's something you can explain to us at the interview window.
Abdul Kadir, some of us have already scheduled an interview before the visa appointment is closed. When the visa services resume, do we have to reschedule personally, or would the embassy automatically be able to contact us? We are actually working with our vendor. I'm hoping that we'll be able to automatically contact everybody, but we are working with our contractor who does the scheduling system to see what they would be able to provide for us, because we understand that this is a very time-consuming process, and we want to make it as easy as possible for people.
Yeah. Let's see. The next question, is it okay for my sponsor to save the required amount for my studies in my account? Yes, absolutely. That's a great way to go. If the money is physically in your bank account and you can speak to where that money came from, it will be very difficult for a visa officer to not believe that. So that's very good. And then the next question from Atanga is, my family business is sponsoring my studies, so I will be presenting my family business account when I go for the interview. Can I use the business account, or must it be private account? On that similar topic, it's much better if it's in your account or a direct relative's account. If it's in a business account, you would need to prove to us that nobody else except you and maybe your father or your mother has access to that account. If your parent has a business partner, if your uncle also has access to that account, it's a lot less likely for us to believe that those are your funds. So we while I can't tell you what to do, I can say that your chances of getting a visa with a business account will inherently be lower than a personal account.
Wally asked, my program is a 2-year program, but my school issued a 3-year timeline on my I-20. Does this raise a flag in my visa application? Absolutely not. Typical undergraduate programs are 4 years. Because of international reciprocity issues, we are very aware that we are only allowed to issue a 2-year visa, and so that the fact that you have a 3-year program and we can only issue a 2-year visa is not your issue. So that is not a concern. You just do need to be aware that you would either need to travel back to get renewed, or you would need to stay in the United States between like your 2nd and 3rd year.
Yeah. So we'll take a few more questions. The next one I see, can we still pay the visa fee even though we are not sure when the embassy will open? And can we secure a tentative interview date? So yes, you can definitely go and pay the visa fee right now, and that will make it easier when it comes time to schedule the appointment. You can secure a tentative interview date for November and onward, but because we don't know when our consular services will reopen, it's possible that we will reopen before November, and you won't be able to select a date before then. So your best bet might be to pay that fee and continue to check the website for information on when we reopen, because once we have a firm date for consular services reopening, we'll go ahead and open up those interview dates for everybody to fill in.
And just a note on the consular dates reopening, we do have a very strict priority list which has been set by Washington on what we will be open for. We would be open for American citizen emergencies first. and visas would be sort of kind of down the line. So when you see us making announcements that we are open for services, that doesn't necessarily mean we'll be open for visa services, but we will make announcements when we are open for visa services. Okay, Diane said, you said when a student returns to Nigeria during study, they will have to renew or reapply for their visa. Does this apply at any point during your first 2 years, say after your first year, or at the close of your 2-year visa validity period? You're able to apply for a visa reapply for your visa at any given time, although I don't think that it would make much sense for you to apply at the beginning of the end of your first year, because then you're spending money and you're still getting a 2-year visa. So if you are, for instance, like the previous person asked, in the middle of a 3-year program, you may want to apply at the end of your second year for your visa as opposed to at the end of your first year, because you're still only getting, the 2-year validity.
Yeah. So we'll take this. I think this is our last question from Abdul Kadir. At the time of filing my DS-160 in March, I was single. Now I am married. How do I mention this to the visa officer without seeming like I hid any info? Well, first of all, Abdul Kadir, congratulations on your marriage. And second of all, it's very easy. We're human beings just like you. I'm getting married later this year as well. So you tell us that when I filled out my DS-160, I was single, and now I'm married, and we will probably tell you congratulations, and it won't be an issue at all. So thank you all for calling in to this Facebook Live event. It's been great. Hopefully we were able to answer some of your questions, make the process a little bit less stressful for you, and we look forward to seeing you at the visa window in the next, hopefully a couple of months in the next year, whenever you're able to come apply for that visa. And good luck with your studies in the U.S. I studied in the U.S., of course, and it's a fantastic academic experience, and I'm very happy for all of you that you get to experience this.
Okay. And again, like Sam said, we're very appreciative that you took your time to do this and to write in and to ask some great will please follow us and like our pages on Education USA Abuja and the U.S. Embassy Nigeria. They will have the latest advice. They will have the latest timelines when we get them. They will have all of that stuff. We ask people to be concise, to have a story that makes sense, be able to demonstrate why this is important for them to go study, and how they can pay for it, and be relaxed. Don't be so nervous and stressed. We do know that it's stressful. And congratulations to everyone who's gotten accepted. We hope that we can see you soon. Yay!
All right. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.